Okay, we are up to Pei Aleph Amar Aleph. Let's see where we should start from. We're up to Amar Rav Hamnuna, which is about 8 lines down. Amar Rav Hamnuna. Let me just first. Yeah, recording is on. And we'll just.
Still dealing with the kvi, or we passed that?
We passed the kvi. Amar Rav Hamnuna Amar Hayer Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon used to say, Ein oisai ve'espenoi noig bekachim. Oisai ve'espenoi does not apply by kachim. My timer. What's the reason? So I think we should take a very quick break and remind ourselves what we learned yesterday. Yesterday the Gemara told us that the Mishnah that we have, the beginning of oisai ve'espenoi, is not consistent with Rab Shimon, because Rab Shimon holds that shchita she'eina ruya lo yishma shchita, and there is one specific case that the Gemara referred to, and that is the Gemara wanted to know what's the chiddush of the fact that our Mishnah is not consistent with Rab Shimon. It's a really pashut zach. So the Gemara answers, "So kedai dechamina shchitas kachim is a shchita ruya." Because the ha'inachir v'zar tam loy mishtri basar. You see that the basar doesn't become mutter with the zrika alone, rather it needs shchita. So you see, although the shchita right away is not matir the basar, but eventually it leads, it's one of the components that's matir the basar. So maybe it should be considered a shchita ru'yi, kamash malon, that it's not a shchita ru'ya. That is Rav Oishia talking, that shchita, Shimon holds shchita she'eina ruya is not a shchita, and the shchita of kochim is not considered a shchita ruya. Today we're going to have a shita that does not hold like that. So let's go weiter. Amar Rav Hamnuna, Amar Hayer Rab Shimon, Ein oisai ve'espenoi noig bekochim. My timer. Sagt the Gemara, Kiven the Amar Rab Shimon shchita she'eina ruya lo shma shchita. Well, shchita's kochim nami shchita she'eina ruya. So that sounds exactly like what we learned on Amud Beis. Masav Rava, oisai ve'espenoi kochim bechutz. Now this is not our Mishnah. This is a brayso that's directly quoting Rab Shimon. Oisai ve'espenoi kochim bechutz. Rab Shimon Omer sheni beloisase. The second one that you shecht will be a loisase. What is the loisase for? What is not for oisai ve'espenoi? Because Rashi tells us that this brayso that we're quoting is in the sugya of shchutei chutz. So it's discussing isurim of shchutei chutz, not isurim of oisai ve'espenoi. So Rashi says sheni beloisase the shchutei chutz v'afal bi she'eina bekaris, even though there's no kares. Why the lav miskabel b'fnimu? Because you couldn't shecht it properly as a carbon. Why? Because it's mechusas man, because of oisai ve'espenoi. Mikomakim beloisase hu. There still will be a loisase hoyel v'rotzoi la'achar man. Since it will be royu to be put on the mizbeach, and since it will be right to be shechted after the 24 hours expire. Okay. The lav didei befarish. What is the lav in referencing shchutei chutz? Okay, gewaltig. So zog the Gemara, Shoy Rab Shimon Omer, Kol haroyu lovay lachas man, haroyu beloisase vein bekaris. If it's not royu to be shechted now, but it will be royu to be shechted lachas man, and you shechted it bechutz, so there's no chiyuv karis of shchutei chutz, but there is an isur lav of shchutei chutz. V'chomim oimrim, Kol she'ein bekaris, ein beloisase. There's either the full Isser of Shchutei Chutz, or no Isser at all. Because Shalon, and we had a kasha, Kachim B'chutz, Sheni B'loisase, why would the Sheni be B'loisase? If you hold it to Shchita Sheni Ru'iyah, Hakama Miktal Katil, the first Shchita is a Shchita Sheni Ru'iyah, we look at it like it was not shechted, rather that it was stam killed. As Rashi says, Rab Shimon, the Shchita Sheni Ru'iyah. So Zog to Gemara, so therefore, sheni mekabel b'fnimhu. You would be able to shecht the second animal b'fnim as a regular kosher carbon, because there wouldn't be a din of oisai ve'espenoi, because the first one wasn't considered to have been shechted. So karis nami l'chayev. So why did we say in this brisa that Rabbi Shimon said that the shechita of the second carbon is only chayiv a lav? It should be chayiv kares. V'yomar Rava, and Rava said, "V'amri lakadi chisur mechzer v'achigatani." In fact, you're 100% right, and there's a case missing in this brisa, and this is how it should read: Kachim shneim b'chutz l'Rabbanon Rishon Anush Kares. According to the Rabbanon, the first one is a Chiv Kares, it's Shchutei Chutz. Sheni Pasal Upater. The Sheni is Pasal Upater. Now Rashi says very carefully, Sheni Pasal Upater Mikares. What about the lav of Yosy Espanoi? Zok Rashi Ubalav the Yosy Espanoi Lemari Hasam. That's a discussion that's not involved in Yosy Espanoi. That's the Zug of Shchutei Chutz. The Gabi Shchutei Chutz Koi. By Potter lo Yitzrach, it doesn't really need to say Potter, ela Aidi the Tanu Mishachayiv Tanu Sheni Potter. But we're focusing on Reb Shimon. The words Milav the Shchutei Chutz are omitted according to the Bach. The Reb Shimon Shneim Anushim Kares. According to Reb Shimon, in fact, they would both be a Chiv Kares. Why? The first would be Chayiv Kares because it's Shchutei Chutz, and the second one would be Chayiv Kares because it's Shchutei Chutz, because the first one is not a good Shchita. Echad b'chutz ve'echad b'fnim. But if one carbon was b'chutz, but the next one is b'fnim, l'Rabbanon Anush Rishon Anush Kares, because it's Shchutei Chutz, and Sheni Pasol Upater, and l'Rab Shimon Sheni Kosher. The second one would be kosher. Why? Because the first one wasn't considered a shchita. The kama miktil kotlei v'sheni lav mechuzes mani, because we don't consider it like the first one was shechted. Okay.
And therefore, it was befim. It's fine.
Yeah, it's perfectly kosher. So sheni kosher. What about echad b'fnim? The first was shechted b'fnim. It's a good carbon. V'echad b'chutz l'rabbanon rishon kosher upater sheni pasol upater. Again, pasol upater from the halacha of Shchutei Chutz, not from the halacha of Yosy Espanoi. And the Reb Shimon sheni is beloy saseh. The second one would have beloy saseh. V'loy b'kares. It wouldn't be chayiv kares. The loy miskabel b'fnimu. It's not miskabel b'fnim because the first shchita was a shchita ru'uya because it was a shchita that was going to work. It was a kosher carbon. The problem is we said even a good carbon is a shchita she'eni ru'uya because the shchita is not mattered until it's rika. That's what we said on Amabez. But here we're departing from that shita.
If you go back just to the Rabbanon, why is Sheni Potter?
But you're asking it should be chayiv al Yosy Espanoi?
No, should be b'chutz. So the third case
because it wasn't royal lavai b'fnim because you already shechted the other one b'fnim already. So sheni pasal butter Reb Shimon sheni b'lois savisol kedadech ein Yosy Espanoi noig b'kachim. If you hold there is no iser Yosy Espanoi by kachim at all, then sheni amai b'lois v'suloi. Why is the sheni only a loisaseh of Shchutei Chutz and not kares? Kares nami l'chayiv, as Rashi says. Sheni b'loisaseh v'loy b'kares the lav miskabel b'fnimu the kama is a shchita ru'uya. But if you hold there's no din Yosy Espanoi by kachim, so then you could check them both the same day. So they're both miskabel b'fnim, and therefore there should be kares as well. Ella Amar Rava hachika Amar. Rav Amnuna, Avada there is an iser of Yosy Espanoi by kachim, but in Malchus Yosy Espanoi by kachim, but there's no chi of Malchus for it. But there is an iser, so therefore, since you were not allowed to shech the second one, even b'fnim, within,
he's talking in Reb Shimon.
He's talking in Reb Shimon. It's correct. So in Malchus Yosy Espanoi noig b'kachim, you wouldn't have Malchus for it. So even though you're not allowed to shecht Yosy Espanoi b'kachim, but there would be no Malchus for it. So let's look again. The Reb Shimon sheni beloy saseh. Why is sheni beloy saseh? Because there is a din Yosy Espanoi, and therefore you weren't allowed to shecht it. So you get a loy saseh because Shimon shita is that even if you don't get kares for Shchutei Chutz, you will still be over beloy saseh. Why is there no Malchus? Why is there no Malchus for Yosy Espanoi by kachim? So the Gemara has a whole shtickle, which Rashi says is a simple mistake. It's a simple mistake. The Gemara must be quoted as Rashi says at the end, what it must be is upirish mishubishu me'adim charefim apolpol. Someone put in alom d'shtickle, but that's not pshat. So I'm going to read the part of Rashi where he's focusing in what is pshat.
What does the Mach say? There's a gimel here.
I'm not sure.
Is he fixing it? No.
No, he's just fixing the lashon if it was. So Zog to Gemara. I'm looking here in Rashi. Kalninchap in the thin lines. The kivan the iser oisav espanoi noig bekachim. Since there is definitely an iser of oisav espanoi by kachim, as we're saying now, there is just no din malchus. Havel sheni mechusas man. The sheni is a mechusas man. If the sheni is a mechusas man, then vin shchita ruuya. So the second shchita is not a shchita ruuya because you weren't allowed to shecht it. Because there is a prohibition of oisav espanoi even by kachim. Ve'ein kan asura klal. So there's no iser here. There is no iser here of shchutei chutz. There's no iser of shchutei chutz because this is not royal lavai b'fnim. So let's see the Gemara weiter. But as the Rava Latemai, and Rava who says that there is a din oisav espanoi, it's just that there's no malchus for it. It stems the Amar Rava. What about he chulin ubina shlamim? You have an oisav espanoi. The mother is a regular animal of chulin, but the child is a carbon. Shachat chulin. What if first you shechted the chulin? So now there's an oisav espanoi. You cannot shech the shlamim. V'achach shachak shlamim. That would be potter. Why would it be potter? Because the asra sofaki v'alibid Rab Shimon nakat milsei. I don't understand. You shechted the chulin, and now you shechted the shlamim. Why would it be potter? Why would it be potter? Because who said he was over oisav espanoi? When you shechted the carbon, you don't know yet that he's going to do the zrika. If you did the zrika, that's when it would become a shchita ru'ya. If you didn't do the zrika yet, at the time when the Eidim tell you don't shecht it, if not you're going to get malchus, that's not necessarily true. Because if he never makes the zrika, he won't get malchus. So this is where we're departing from Aboishia. Yesterday we said that shchitas kachim is a shchita sheni ruya because since the shchita by itself is not a matter, it also requires the zrika. So therefore, even if the zrika happens, it's a shchita sheni ruya. That's what we said yesterday. Here we're saying no. If you end up making this rika, it's a gloy milsalim afreya that the shchita was a shchita ruya. And then there would be malchus. The whole problem is, at the time of the shchita, we don't know what's going to happen with this rika. So therefore, you can't tell you if you do the shchita, you're for sure going to get malchus. If you for sure do the shchita, maybe you'll be over alav if later on this rika is done. That's not a good asra.
When you do shkita for whatever any carbon, you don't need kavanah for it.
Yeah, you do need to have kavana.
So kavanah doesn't matter.
Well, kavana doesn't matter to accomplish what?
I'm saying it's still
To be over oisav espanoi?
So you're still not a carbon until you do zrika.
It's not matter the basar b'achila, or it's not matter the basar the mizbeach. In those Shimon holds, if the shchita didn't have the impact that it needed to have, which is to allow you to eat the meat, so then it's a shchita sheniruya. So you could have had all the kavod in the world, but the fact is it didn't accomplish what it needed to. That's not considered a valid shchita that you would get malchus for because of oisav espanoi, because it wasn't a good shchita. It didn't do anything.
What about it with an oila, where you don't need anything?
That's a beautiful question. Let's see in a second. There's nothing to eat. So it's always a shchita sheniruya because it's never being matter anything. That's a beautiful question you're bringing up. So Zog to Gemara, shachat chulin v'achar shlomim potter, but shlomim v'achar chulin. But if you shechted first the shlomim and you made the zrika, so it's already verified as a shchita ruya. Now you want to shech the chulin. There they can give you a proper asra because by chulin there's no zrika necessary. They can tell you if you do this shchita, you will be chayiv malchus chayiv. That's right. V'yamar Rava. He chulin ubuna oila, exactly your shaila, where there's never anything becoming mutter because of the shchita. He chulin ubuna oila loy mi boyi shachat chulin v'achat shad oila the potter. It's clear if you shechted the chulin and then if you shechted the oila, it's potter because when you shechted the oila, it's for sure shchita sheneruya because it's not being matir anything, right? Ella.
Shimon goes that far, even when the animal is not meant to be eaten?
Let's see the other base. Ella. Afilu shachat oila, the achat shachat chulin, even if you shachat the oila first, where there was for sure is rika, it's still called the shchita sheni ruya, potter, because shchita kamaisa lav shchita bas achilahi. So you're going to ask, does Reb Shimon go so far? Rabbi Yaakov disagrees. That's Rava talking. But for Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Yochanan, achilas mizbeach shma achila. That's also called a shchita ruya, because if without the proper shchita, you wouldn't even be able to place the meat of the oil on the mizbeach, and that's called achila. That would make it a shchita ruya. How do I know that achilas mizbeach is a legit achila? My timer, the Amar Kra, vim he'achel ye'achel mibtzar zevach shlomov. This is in the parsha of Pigel, and it's a double lashon he'achel ye'achel. You know what we learn from there? Bishtei achila is a kosav v'daber. Echad achilas adam, echad achilas mizbeach. Meaning, by machshav of Pigel, not only if you have a kavanah to eat the meat that you're supposed to eat, chutz l'zmanoi will it be Pigel, but if you had kavanah to put on the mizbeach, what's supposed to be put on the Mizbeach today, and you have in mind to put it on the Mizbeach tomorrow, that's also Pigel. So you see clearly the Torah is referring to being makdir meat on the Mizbeach as an achila. So therefore, if it's an achila, then this is a shchita hara'uya. That's exactly what you were pointing out. Zok tehelig mishnah weiter. Hashoichet v'nimta treifa. If you shechted and it turned out being treifa, is that considered a shchita hara'uya? If it was treifa, or hashoichet lavoid zara, that's also bana, or vashoichet paras chatos, or if he shechted a par aduma, which is not edible, or v'shar niskal, they already paskined that this is a shar niskal, has to get killed because this shar killed somebody, for instance, and then you went and shechted it, you chapped it before Bezin had a chance to kill it, and as it turns out, you wanted to shecht its child the same day, right?
Yeah, well, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. The Egla Rufa, there's a good Stefanski video on this. He has a guy who's very hungry, so he has these two oxen that he's taking into the shlachtos. He says, please shecht them both, I want to have good food today. And the sheikh says, I'm sorry, it's Oysa Vispinoi, I can't. So he said, okay, take the father. They take the father and shecht it, and they bring out meat, and then the guy says, but you can't eat this meat, because we found out that this shor was a shor niskal. So he says, okay, take the son then, because that would be the shchita sheni ruya. So he takes the son, he brings out a tray of barbecued meat. He says, yeah, but it's the 9 days. So Dr. Gemara weiter. The Egla Rufa, again, the Egla Rufa is, Rashi telling us that obviously our Mishnah holds that the Egla Rufa is also b'na machayim, because there are those who hold until they actually chop the neck off, it's not also b'na. But here, we're going according to Shida that it's also b'na machayim. Reb Shimon pointer, because all these are, according to Reb Shimon, all these are shchita shenuruya, and according to Reb Shimon, it's lo shva shchita.
What do they do with the Egla Rufa after they...
They just let it sit there b'nachal. They abandon it there. V'chachamim mechayvim, but the chachamim hold shchita shenuruya shma shchita. Therefore, all these are called a shchita. Hashoichet v'nisnabla b'yadai. What if you were in the middle of shechting and you made agroma, you slipped out of the zone, or your sack was pogum, and it made ikur, or v'anoicha v'makar, or if you did the shchita in such a way where it wasn't a shchita, that's part of mishamoyis v'spinoi, because that's not called a shchita sheneruya. That's not a shchita at all. That's right. The discussion that shoichet lavoid zara will be chayiv in Oysa V'Spanoi, according to the Rabbanon, that if the first one was Shechad L'Avodah Zarah and the second one was L'Shulchanai. Avol Rishon L'Shulchanai, V'Sheni L'Avodah Zarah, meaning the Shechita with which you're over the lav is the Shechita L'Avodah Zarah, which carries in itself a Chiv Misa, because of Shechita L'Avodah Zarah, that's going to be Potter, to come Le'B'D Rabbaminei. So you'd only get Malchus for the Oysa V'Spanoi is if the second one was the Shechita of Oysa V'Spanoi, because there you don't have come Le'B'D Rabbaminei. This guy has bigger fish to fry. I mean, he's getting but lav davka, because it could have been somebody else who did it. It doesn't have to be the same person doing both shchitas, right? No. You could have Moshe Pepe could do the shchita rishayna, and Beryl could do the shchita achrona, and the second guy is chayiv. The Gemara is going to have a discussion soon.
Then how do you know?
The Gemara is going to have a discussion soon. If you and me each buy a father and a son, and we're both hungry for today, who has the recht to shechters today?
But how do you know? You mark it?
You have to track it. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan, Zu afilu tinoik yishal b'shra ben yoidin oisa. This is pashut that that it would become like Rabbi Minei, and there wouldn't be a chiv of Malchus versus Benoi. Elapamim shavilu shachat rishon l'shalchanoi v'sheni l'avodah zarah chayiv. There's a situation where even if the second one was l'avodah zarah, it would be chayiv. And when would that be? In other words, a case where there would not be kamlei b'derabbi minei. When would there not be kamlei b'derabbi minei? When he was about to shecht the second animal, they told him if you shecht it, you're going to get malchus because of oisavas b'noi. But they never told him if you shecht it, you're going to get misa because it's shchita l'avodah zarah. So therefore, he's not chayv misa. They can't kill him if he didn't have asra l'misa. But he could get malchus, so there it would be negeah. But Reb Shimon Lakish says there's something called Chaivei Missos Shogagin. Any Aveira, for it would have been possible to get Misa for, if it would have been handled properly, even if for some reason in this case you're not getting Misa, because there was no Asra, but it's the type of an Aveira that could deliver Misa, you also say Kam Le'B'D Rabbi Minei there. So Zok Reb Shimon Lakish, Kivon Dechi Astru Bei Potter, had they warned him that this is Shchidas Avodah Zarah and there'll be Chayiv Misa, he would have been Potter from the Malchus of Oisavus Benoi because of Kamalei B'Rabbi Minei, even Kilo Yasser Nami Potter, it would be Potter. That's from Shlakish Shita that any Aveir that could lead to Misa, even though in this particular instance it's not leading to Misa, there would still be a deed of Kamalei B'Rabbi Minei. Not only are they arguing in this case how to understand our Mishnah of Oisavus Benoi, but they argue elsewhere. The Chiyasar Abdimi Amar, Chaivei Missos Shogagin, v'Chaivei Malchus Shogagin. What if someone did Chilul Shabbos b'Shogeg, so there's no Chiv Misa there, but Chilul Shabbos is an Aveira that could lead to Chiv Misa, and at the same time, he did a Chiv Malchus or he did a Chiv Mammon. So, Rabdimi said, Chaivei Missos Shogagin, v'Chaivei Malchus Shogagin, v'Davar Acher. So that means either if he did something that he was Chayiv Misa for together with Mammon, or together with Malchus, or he did a Chiv Malchus with a Chiv Mammon, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayiv, Rabbi Yochanan holds you'll be Chayiv both. Why? Because you don't say Kamei B'Rabbi Minei, because there is no Chiv Misa in this particular instance. For Shlakish Amar Potter, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayiv, the Halay Asr Bey, they didn't give him Asra for Misa or for Malchus, and therefore he could be Mechuyev Mammon. But for Shlakish Amar Potter, Kiven the Chi Asr Bey Potter, Kili Asr Bey Nami Potter. So, for the Gemara, why does Rabbi Yochanan and Shlakish need to be arguing in Pshat in our Mishnah, and also in that case, isn't it the same halacha? Utricha. The Ashmina Baha, if we only knew in this case, and Baha means the Potter Mimalkus in our case. So the Ashmina Baha, if we only knew the halacha in our case. Where did I go? The Yashmin Baha come Reb Shimon ben Lakish. Only over here did Reb Shimon ben Lakish say that you'll be chayiv. Aval Baha Eima Moedel Rabbi Yochanan that it would be potter. So let's have a look. The Iyamar Baha come Reb Lakish the potter be Malchus. Why? Hoil v'yesh b'shchita zu tzad misa paka lei teres Malchus minei. This same shchita brought a Chiv Malchus and brought a Chiv Misa. So since this same Shchita that's bringing the Chiv Malchus was also going to bring the Chiv Misa. Titarti begufa le'ramilei. They're not going to put two oinchim on him for the exact same Shchita of the exact same item. Hilchach afilu lo yasher bei lemisa. Therefore, even though there was no asra lemisa, leka Malchus, and that's why in our Mishnah he holds that there would be a chiv, there would not be a chiv Malchus because it could have led potentially to a chiv Misa. So what you did is you carried something from the Rishus Nizik, from the Rishus Nigzal out. So what are you doing? You're doing a chiv Misa of Yitzir Shabbos, and you're doing a chiv Mammon. But I'm violating one. I'm violating Shabbos, and one is a completely different thing. One violation is that I'm doing something wrong with my guf. The other violation is not because I'm being mafsed you money. It's not the same source of iser. Ema tevayu rami alei. Maybe over there, Rish Lakish would agree that you're chai for both unless you're actually getting misa, right? Umiyu hechad the miktal. When you're really getting misa, if there was a hasra, everybody agrees like mishalem mishum dekamei v'drabim avol hechad loy miktal mishalem. We're discussing where, for some reason, it didn't actually lead to an actual chiv misa. So in our case, it's the same shchit of the same animal that's going to trigger two things. There, Rish Lakish should hold that it wouldn't trigger both chiyuvim. But here, where it's two different chiyuvim coming from two different places, maybe one would not cancel the other out. So that's why Rish Lakish needed to tell us this in both places. And who did Rabbi Yochanan? And if we only had the case of Chaivei Misha Shogagin, then B'hakam Rabbi Yochanan.
Let's do the next Rashi.
Well, that's on the second. That's on Rabbi Yochanan. So let's see Rabbi Yochanan first. If we only had our case, B'hakam Rabbi Yochanan, that you don't say Kamei B'drabim Minei, because it's two separate things. There's a Mammon and there's a Misa. But in our Mishnah, because it's the same thing, Tricha. So on that you have the Rashi you're talking about. The Ramya Tyrus Malchus Bavera Shal Misa Klal, and maybe he would agree to Chaivei Misha Shogagin in our case because it's the same Avera that has in it the same Shchita has a Chiv Misa and has a Chiv Malchus. Zok to Gemara weiter. Zok to weiter. We have to go weiter because I'm trying to get a lot ahead, right? So Zok to Gemara. Uparas chatas. One of the items in the list that the shchita sheni ruya was the par aduma. Frank Gemara, paras chatas shchita sheni ruya. For Tanya, this is the most famous blot in Shas because this same line is quoted on, I believe, Vav Kamad of Ein Vav, where the whole daf is just these two lines. For Tanya, Reb Shimon Omer para matama tumas oichlin ha'al v'oisel Shas hakosher. The par aduma is not an oichel. You don't need it. It gets burnt, right? Oh, sorry, I died. I'm sorry. So the Missos is probably right? So I remember when we were in Philadelphia Yeshiva, we were learning Daf Ayin Zayin and Bava Kama, and there's one line of Rashi, and there's a long Tosfos on Purim Matama Tumas Oichlin, which Tosfos actually has over here in a much shorter form. So I remember we showed it to our Goyish math teacher. We showed him he was curious to know how the Talmud works. So we told him that the main text is the main text, and then on the side, the smaller text, our commentary. So we showed him that daf, and he says, I don't know what that says, but it must have been a great line. So talk to Gemara. Would the meat of a par aduma be tamei if a sheretz touched it? The question is it an oichel or not? Well, it's not an oichel. It's going to be burnt. Zok Reb Shimon, it is an oichel. You know why? Hoyel v'oisel shasa kosher. Shimon knows Adke Dekacha. We're going to see in just a moment that even after you shechted the paraduma, you could still think to yourself, you know what? I found a better one. I'm using this for meat, and you'd be able to eat it. So before it became usher to be eaten, before it became a paraduma, there was a time where the shchita was materit be'achila. So for the same reason why we're saying that it's matamat, because even after the shchita, it could have been eaten if you would have changed your mind. So then the shchita is a shchita ruya. By definition, the shchita is a shchita ruya. So how can you say in our Mishnah, according to Reb Shimon, that it's a shchita sheni ruya? Reb Shimon holds hayav oisel shasa kosher. Vam Reb Shimon lakish. Aimer hayer Reb Shimon par niftis al gabi marachta. Even when you're ready to burn it, you can change your mind and say, no, I'm being paid it, and we're going to use it as regular meat.
Is there a Zrika by
There's a Zrika, but not on the Mizbeach. They're standing on Harazaisim and they're sprucing the blood towards it. That's what it seems like. It's even on the Marach. So let's see. Rashi says, "Afilu shachta kelchosa al maracha shal eitzim shenishchat aleh." So So I'm not sure at what point. Is the cutoff, but definitely even after the shchita, you would be able to be paid it, and it would be a shchita ruya. So Amar Rab Shammai bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan paras chatas ein a Mishnah. You're right. There's a mistake in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah lists off paras chatas as an example of a shchita sheinu ruya, it's a mistake. It's a mistake. Wow. Take it out. Loy nish b'mishnah seinu. It's a mistake. It doesn't belong there. So, for the Gemara, what about egla rufa? The egla rufa lav shchita ruya. Why isn't the egla rufa shchita ruya? But none we learned. What happens if? How does egla rufa get triggered? They find a corpse and they don't know. They don't know who killed it. They don't know who's guilty. Well, what happens if they have this egla down at Tanachal ready to go, and nimtza hayrik achaloi te'er of egla? So you know what you do? Teitzei v'ter be'eder. The egla goes free. It's a regular chuldik animal. So if you shechted it, it's a shchita ruya because maybe the guy will still be found.
The killer.
That's right. So ay bazoi, why is it called the shchita sheinu ruya? Amar b'shem melokish mishum abyanai. Egla Rufa in the Mishnah. You're right. Take Egla Rufa out also. Now it's already open country on the Mishnah. We can start saying if we have a little itch, we can just say it wrong. Zok no. Now you're pushing it too much. Egla Rufa is legit. Umi Amar Rabbi Yanai Hachi. Did Rabbi Yanai say that Egla Rufa in the Mishnah? Amar Rabbi Yanai Gavul Shematiba. I clearly remember that there is a cutoff. There is a time when even when it's alive, where it's past the point of no return, and it becomes Asr Bana. I just don't remember. But V'shachachti, I just don't remember when that the demarcation point is. V'nosven Chavraya Loimer, and my friends got together, and they reminded me when it was. Yiridasa L'nachal Eison Eisrasa. Once they take it down into the Nachal, there it's Asr Bana. So if at that point you shechted it, it would be a Shechita Sheinu Ruya. So our Mishnah fits in perfectly. You could be speaking where you shechted it after you brought it to Nachal Eison. The Misa, but if you're going to hold, that you want to take away and say it's wrong, why would you take it away from our mission and say it's wrong? Lishne kan koidem yirida. When is it a shchita ru'uya? Nimtarek achalei te'arif. That's if you found it before you took it down. The kind our Mishnah that calls it a shchita sheinu ru'uya is lacha yirida. So therefore, Rabbi Yana could not have possibly said that egla rufa in the Mishnah, because according to Rabbi Yana, you can very easily find for the Mishnah. You're right. The comment of Egla Rufa in the Mishnah is not consistent with Rabbi Yanai, because Rabbi Yanai clearly says that Yiridas L'Nachal is what makes it Aser. But Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said Egla Rufa in the Mishnah. Because Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish might argue in Rabbi Yanai, and he might hold that until the head's chopped off, you could still put it still won't have it. It still will not be Asher Bana.
It makes no sense. Rich Lakish said it b'shum Rabbi Yanai. 2 lines above.
That's Rabbi Yanai. So the Teretz says he didn't say b'shum Rabbi Yanai. It's a mistake. He must have said it by himself. That's the whole point.
Oh, that's what he
how could you be accurate when he said it?
It's his own words.
It must be his own words. He couldn't have said the name of Rabbi Yanai, because according to Rabbi Yanai, you could have easily explained the Mishnah. Amar Bashi, Kavina Bear Puppy, when I was by Rav Puppy's house, Kashalon, we had the following problem. Umi Amar Rab Shimon ben Lakish, did Rab Shimon ben Lakish actually say that Egla Rufa Zay the Mishnah? Via Itmar, we learned, Tzipayim Mitzayra Me'emasai Nasarin. The Tzipayim of the Mitzayra, where one is shechted and one is sent away. When do they become Osher Bana? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Mishash Shchita, Rab Shimon Lakish Amar Mishas Lakicha. Zok Rashi, Mishas Shchita means V'neser Shchuta. That means out of the 2 birds, only the bird that you shecht becomes Osher Bana. The bird that you send away doesn't become Osher Bana, because it wasn't shechted. Aval Mishulach as Muteres. D'chsiv V'shilach es Atzipor Achaya. V'lo Amar Torah Shalech L'Takala. Rabbi Yochanan holds, how you talk it, the Torah is going to tell you that a bird is Osher Bana, and you send it into the wild for somebody else to catch it and be Nichshel in Isur, no? But Rabbi Shimon knows no Mishas Kicha, and therefore Ushneam Nesaris At Sheyishlach. I guess once they're sent away, so then the kedusha is discharged. But they're both kadosh b'shas lekicha. V'yamrinim my time with Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Where in the world did Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish get from that? Memela the shchita, that makes sense. It becomes asar bana. What is the lekicha? Where do you see anything about lekicha creating any type of kedusha? Zok to Gemara, Gamar kicha me'egla rufa. Just like egla rufa is going to be Asr Mechayim, so too the birds Asr Mechayim. So you see clearly Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish agrees with Rabbi Yanai that the Egla Rufa is Asr Bana Mechayim. So you must also agree that Yiridasa L'Nachal Leis Rasa. So how could Rish Lakish say in the Mishnah by Egla Rufa? Amar Rabbi Yochanan Egla Rufa in the Mishnah. You're right. According to Rish Lakish, it's also good Egla Rufa because our Mishnah could be speaking if you shechted it before you took it to Nachaleison, before it was also Bana, when it's still a Shechita Ru'uya. So it must have been Rabbi Yochanan who argues with this, and he says Egla Rufa in the Mishnah. So now it's not Rish Lakish at all. Zok the Gemara weiter. Shnayim shalakhu para ubana. Two people go to a vendor. One buys the para, one buys the ubana. They both are hungry. They both have a wedding tonight that they need it for. Who gets to shecht first? Whoever bought it first. Because when I bought it first, of course I'm buying it because I want it for today. So I locked it up. When Yena comes, the vendor should tell him, oh, by the way, I can sell you this animal, but you can't use it today. But what if the second guy was a chazer and he quickly shechted his animal? Zacha, his animal is kosher. Now you can't do it. Rabbi Yosef, le'inyan dina tanan. This that we say Zocha, it means in din he was Zocha, meaning it's not an Issav. It's not because you're the second guy. It's Osir. It means a Choshe Mishpat. I have first rights. Rishon. If the second guy said I want to shech first, for Rishon Yamtin Admacher Mutter, I have a right to say I know I have a right to shech today, but I'll let you shech. If it's an Isser v'heter, I can't let you. I can't let you over an Isser, but it's a Choshe Mishpat Kedin. L'nidin Tanan. Tana we learned in Kadam Hasheni raises Zar is v'niskar. Zar is why the Avri Surah. V'niskar the Ka'achal Bisra because he is able to eat the meat. Where's the beef? Okay, we'll stop here, Be'ez Hashem, and we'll be mamshech tomorrow. Everybody should have an awesome day. Today is the Yortzeit of Darizal, but he was Dari the day he died. Today was the day he changed from Dari Hakadosh to Darizal. And also one of the greatest poskim of the last generation, Reb Chamoisher Kuzonsky, his yartzeits today as well. There's a lot of big yartzeits today. So the Neshama should have an aliyah and Chisam Yugan Alaini. My son told me that there's a Chassidish Bucher, he was going through the border. So they asked him, in what country were you born? He says, I wasn't even born in the summer.
There's a WhatsApp that's going on.
Okay, Scott.